Hey everyone, I want to welcome you to this month's edition of the More Members Now podcast. I'm really excited about today's podcast because we're going to be talking about the selling of your membership, and not just the selling part of your membership, but actually building a sales team. Even if you are just a solopreneur, how you can actually increase your sales just in some simple tweaks and possibly even outsource your sales so that you can stay that solopreneur. Now, if you're not a solopreneur and you've got a big sales team, hey, listen, I am introducing you to one of my friends, Loise, who is an expert at this. So welcome to this week's edition of the More Members Now podcast. We'll get started in just a moment. So I'm really excited about this edition of the More Members Now podcast because I get to interview one of my good friends, Loise, and he is the founder of salesperformanceteam.com. He's also the former president of No BS Inner Circle with Dan Kennedy. And I've got to tell you, he's one of the nation's top performers when it comes to building a sales team, coaching people on sales, and just overall increasing your sales revenue. So, Nicholas, I want to welcome you to this week's edition. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to be a part of our podcast here and do this interview.
Scott, first and foremost, thank you so much for asking. The work you're doing with the More Members Now group is phenomenal. You were always my go-to guy whenever I had questions about anything membership. Whenever we wanted to do education for people, when I was at the opportunity to work with No BS team. So, it's phenomenal to be on this side of the interview because I know so many times I interviewed you, and the work you do in the membership space is so important for everybody that I'm just happy to be part of this great family.
Well, I appreciate that. And just to say, I've learned as much from you about membership as well. So, not just membership, but also the selling side of it. So, Nick, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Well, I've had a great journey. I kind of finished school many years ago and started carrying a bag, right? So I started out selling and kind of worked my way into a number of different positions, and then started spending a little bit more time on the marketing side. So I had opportunity to work in a large, as a VP of marketing for a large organization, and we had a field sales team, and we did a lot of advertising on TV, radio, and all that. And then I started my own agency. And then kind of fell into what was then the GKIC world, or people may have known it as Glazer Kennedy Insider Circle. And they had what they called the IBA program. So there was independent people that were having chapter meetings, membership meetings, as your audience may know. And so they were very kind about allowing me to come in and talk. And our special niche was how to get to the affluent marketplace. From that, I kind of learned more and more about information marketing and the membership-based business. Fell in love with it, fell in love with the revenue model, fell in love with serving people on a bigger platform, and had an opportunity to come work with a little company called GKC. Was the VP of sales there, so kind of built up the sales team under a private equity firm, and then focused more on integrating the marketing, the sales side, and the membership side when I got promoted up to president. And then really saw a niche in the marketplace. It was COVID. I had been walking around with a business plan, Scott, and I'm sure you realized this when you kind of moved into your entrepreneur journey, of this is something I really want to do, is take a outsourced sales management team, build up a outsourced sales floor for people, and really help people accelerate their sales team and their sales team production. Many times it's a black hole. Many times business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs don't like to deal with it. So let us deal with it. And it's been phenomenal. COVID's been an accelerator where I had some fear. You ever know when you take that initial leap, what's going to happen if the marketplace is going to be receptive to it. It's been a phenomenal journey. It's been a short journey, but it really has been a fun run.
Well, I'm excited for you because, I've been able to just kind of observe this firsthand and the transition, and also a number of, our mutual friends already reaching out to you and saying, hey, come build my sales team, which is phenomenal for you. So I'm excited for you. And they couldn't be looking at a better person to do it. So Nick, give us your origin story. I mean, how did you get started in sales? You said that you first started out by carrying the bag, doing sales, but what drove you into it? How did you get started?
Great question, and it's one of my favorite questions. So growing up, I had the opportunity to live in an entrepreneurial family, and my mom and dad weren't entrepreneurial, but my dad's father and all the uncles were entrepreneurial, and on my mom's side, they were all very, very entrepreneurial. And so I kind of learned the business. On my dad's side, the business that they were in was the produce business, was the worst business in the world, horrible business, right? Because as soon as you pull away from the dock, your stock is depleting, right? It's spoiling. And my dad knew he didn't want to get into that business, but I spent a lot of time with my uncles, and kind of learned the sales from the ground up, so to speak, right? I went out and then with sales calls, and a lot of my favorite uncle then moved into the component business, so the transistor business and a lot of the electronic components. And he and I would always talk sales, and I knew I wanted to be in sales, and he built up a big distributorship throughout all of the Midwest. So in college, I knew I wanted to be sales, so I kind of studied marketing and I studied psychology and human behavior. And when I graduated, it was an opportunity to go into a management trainee program. And so this is when companies had full-fledged trainee programs where you went through every department in the world, and you learned the business, and it was really a sought-after position. And I said from day one, hey, listen, I want to get into sales business development. It was probably called then or whatever it was. And they said, sure, kid, no problem. And then they kind of put me through. And then when I finished it, they said, well, here's your assignment. I said, I want to be in sales. They said, you're 21, 22. The average person that sells for us is in their 30s. You got some time. And I said, sure, no problem. Here's my 2 weeks. And so I quit. And then I went and started selling financial services. So I sold insurance. Many people may know that business. Or I sold mutual funds and investment portfolios and that. And so I grew up in a cubicle. And if anybody grew up selling, they knew the one card system. So I grew up on the one card system, which in essence is a fancy index card that you would write all your contact information. Nowadays, we put it into a CRM. I just started building up a book of business and called on businesses and really learned the art of selling. And then we tried everything we possibly could on the lead generation side because you knew you had to have leads, right? So we kind of just, did whatever we could, from give speeches to we had the first automatic dialer where we pooled our money. And I think at the time it was like a $500 investment. We had to have 4 different telephone lines coming into it, and it sent out recorded messages with the hope that somebody would leave a message back saying, yes, talk to me about my financial needs. We tried everything. And I just became a better and better and better salesperson. Went out and sold for some Fortune 10 companies, some Fortune 100 companies. The bureaucratic long-term sale, I realized wasn't for me. It was nothing wrong with it, and these companies were great companies and great training grounds, but dealing with a 1-year buying cycle just didn't fit my personality type. I went and got my master's and master's in entrepreneurship and marketing, and then I got recruited into a healthcare organization. We had a field sales team, right, and that's really how we moved market share. But we did a lot of ads, and then I started my own company. And if you own your own company, you're really the chief salesperson. So I was knocking on doors, and I was we built up a sales floor for that. I had about 5 sellers inside, and then I had 5 more outside. But really, I call myself the chief sales officer because I was responsible for bringing in the business. And then I found myself to GKIC at the time, and loved the product, so I was able to sell it. So I kind of have always been on the sales side, and it's the best personality and mission match for me. So I know that's what I like to do.
Yeah, I love what you said there about being the chief sales officer. I mean, really, if you are the entrepreneur, if you're the owner of the business, you really are that chief salesperson. So what advice would you give someone when it comes to selling?
Well, first off, I think you said it so well, Scott. And in the membership world, everybody is passionate about the value that their product or service or their membership brings to their members. And that's the most honorable thing that you could possibly do. And I think you need to take that same philosophy when it comes to selling. And many times people view selling as a negative thing, right? I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to, I don't want to be that person, because there's bad connotations with salespeople. Some of it deserved, some of it not deserved. But I think you have to view selling as a service, right? And one of the most honorable services that you could possibly do, and change that mindset. And I always had the philosophy, and I always write about it and I talk about it, is if you in your heart of hearts believe in the product and services that you sell, which I'm sure everybody that listens to this does, and the value that your customer gets from that product or service or that membership, then it is your duty to convince them. It is your duty to move them to take advantage of this. Because I see the case studies that you publish, right, and the work that you do with your clients and the success that they get. And it really is an amplifier and an accelerator for them to really, really take their membership business to the next level. And so none of that happens until somebody says yes. You can't provide your services to the people that really get such great benefit from those services until they say yes. The people that are your customers and your clients and your members, their members can't get that benefit until they say yes. So I really look at it as the most noble profession out there. And really, it's the only way to get the goods and services into the marketplace so people get the huge value. The other thing, if I could keep on going on that point, Scott, if that's okay,
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
that where most business owners, because they get busy, and most salespeople, because they have a horrible thing probably called ADD, or they just move on to the next thing, where most people leave money on the table and where they really don't focus their time and energy, and where we really like to help people get to, is not on the opening, right, or the lead generation. Because I'm sure the teaching that you do teaches them a lot of the important thing of lead generation, of how to get the appropriate leads into the market and start the communication. But where really people leave money on the table is they just don't focus on the middle of the funnel, so to speak. They don't focus on the sales process, maybe having to have more than one touch or one call, and really realizing that the follow-up is where the money's made. And it's always now your responsibility to follow up. Once that potential member raises their hand, they've done their work. Now it's your job, right? Your job is to educate them, make sure it's a right mission match. Does it fit well, right? Is this the right membership for them? And now it's my in turn. And the phraseology that we use in sales, it's one of my missions to change the phraseology, right? We use the term close. Well, nobody wants to be closed, but we all want to be converted, right? Or we all want to take the journey together and say, yes, this makes sense for me. I am curious to know more and more and more about how this membership will add value to my life, or how partaking in the services that you provide, Scott, can add benefit to my membership services. And so let's take this journey together. And so that's really my philosophy of helping people take the journey to make their lives better. And we make our lives better, right, by removing pain, right? There's pain. One is, the pain may be, I can't scale my membership business. Or pleasure, right? I really want to put this membership business on autopilot, and I really want to create a lifestyle business that is just phenomenal, right? It's July 6th today, or July 5th. We were joking on the pre-show about, I'd rather be on the lake, right? So how do I set up a business that fits my lifestyle, if that's what you want to do? Or how do I set up a business that could really scale and move on and help me do other things in my life, whether that's start a nonprofit or have a foundation or do some really, really cool philanthropic things, whatever it is that motivates you, it all happens from sales, right? And it is a soapbox, and I realize I stepped on it, which you probably were okay with, but it is so important And you and I always, talk about, hey, man, nothing happens until somebody sells something. Until somebody says yes, let's take this journey together and let's figure out how what you do could fit to make my life better, or to remove some of the things that are really driving me crazy or causing me massive amount of pain. And some of that pain may be small pain, right? It doesn't have to be physical pain, but we either can relieve it or we can help amplify it. And nobody wants to amplify pain. So let's
Yeah.
let's be in the business to relieve it.
Nick, you're giving us gold here. So, I mean, just some actionable steps that I've heard you say already is number one, and I'm going to use the words moral obligation, that you as a membership business owner, you believe in your membership. You really do have a moral obligation to help as many people as possible. And you can only help them by engaging them in the membership and actually selling your membership to them. And so that's point number one. Point number two is the fruit is in the follow-up, as you were saying. It's in that middle where people are on your list. You think they said no, but they've just said not right now. And so following up with the middle of your list where they're not new, they're engaging, they're learning to trust you, they're learning more about what you provide as a membership. That is where your number one opportunity is for your sales. So Nick, I appreciate all this gold that you're giving us, man. The third nugget that I heard you say was maybe in order for you to scale, you need to look outside of yourself. And so that leads me to our next question really is, what should people look for when it comes to hiring a salesperson?
Great question. So when they're hiring a salesperson, they have to look for a certain personality types and traits, right? And many people miss that because sometimes we have a tendency to hire people that fit our own image. And that may not be a good salesperson, right? So the first thing we want to look for in a salesperson is somebody that's hyper competitive, that really, really, really understands and has a drive to succeed. And it doesn't have to be on a grand scale. They just need to they just have to have a competitive drive in them. The second thing I look for, and most people miss, and they really want to get to, is, are they coachable? Right? Because we're going to be putting processes and systems in place that we're coaching our salespeople along the way. And so you want somebody that's coachable, right? Not the person that I know it, I could do it, I've done it all, blah, 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 blah. The third thing that you really want to look for is somebody that has an empathetic trait, right? Not a sympathetic trait, but an empathetic trait, right? So they can empathize with the person, but they also can move the person to move forward with the solution, i.e. the membership, if it's the right thing for them. A sympathetic person will always kowtow to the problems and sympathize with them and then won't push for the sale, right? Or won't push the person forward. And the only time that we expand as humans and better ourselves is when we're pushed, right? When we move outside of our comfort zone. And the fifth thing that I really, really, really look for when I'm looking at salespeople, so the first thing is obviously, are they competitive? Two is, are they coachable? Three is, do they have a highly empathetic thing? Four is, I want to make sure they're not people pleasers, right? And that they get asked for the order and don't have a problem asking for the order. And five is that they have a good basis and grounding, right? So are they a good person? Right? Are they not going to stretch the truth and have exposure for my brand in any way, shape, or form? Right? And so those are really the five traits that I look for when you're hiring for a salesperson.
That's awesome, man. Now, Nick, I'm just going to say it that probably a number of people listening to us right now would think that, they could never really have a sales team, finding those people and those that match those characteristics. But and I know that having a sales team and outsourcing a sales team makes it a lot more easily for scaling the membership, but also a lot more possible to actually get that sales. So at what point should business owners consider outsourcing a sales team? And I'm just going to throw it in there, a sales team like you would be able to set up for them. So
sure.
I'll put that out there.
Yeah. Great question. And so the number one rule that I always have for salespeople, and I always tell this when I'm talking to business owners like your members, is first and foremost, never just hire one salesperson. Right? You always want to hire two. One is you want to be able to track, right, and have a parallel path that two people are going on so you can compare and contrast. So how is Nick doing versus Scott, right? And what is happening on different KPIs, right, key performance indicators that we're tracking to make sure that the process is being followed. And so if you could only hire one or only have the means to hire one, I would highly prefer and I would highly consult with you to say hire two part-time. Right, and in this day and age, it's just easier, right? Because people are more apt to have say yes to part-time business. If they want to outsource to us, right? So outsourcing really happens. We have clients all the time that are talking to us, and they're saying, "I'll outsourcing from day one." Right, so I know I need a sales team. I don't want a sales team. I don't want to deal with the headaches. They're all drama queens, right? And I'm a salesperson, so I could say that. But I don't want to deal with the day-to-day management of it. I don't know how to do it. I don't want to do it. I've been burnt before. So we could take care of it from day one. Or other people that are coming to talk to us. Just got off the phone before you and I got on the phone. He's already got an established sales team. They want to scale up for, let's say it's a product launch, but they don't want to have the FTEs on the payroll maybe once the product launch is over. And so the product launch window may be 3 months, maybe 4 months. And so they just want to hire us for that small period of time. That's fine as long as they bring us in on the front end so we can have enough time to get the appropriate personality types for the phone for who they're selling to. And then we could scale the team up. So, it just depends on where they're at. Some do it from day one. Some do it, they're already established. They're already at, maybe they're at 7 figures or plus, but they have a product launch that they want to take on. And so then they bring us to run that for that or run the floor for them for that.
Yeah. So let me just say, those of you who are considering on doing a launch of your membership might consider, talking with Nick and his team about how you could bring them in as your sales team to increase the results of your launch of your membership, or if you have a big membership campaign that's going to be going out where you're going to be promoting it really heavily, bringing them in. And then those of you who have switched over to virtual events, another opportunity there to bring Nick in and his team and have an outsourced sales team. So there's all sorts of opportunities for you as a membership business to have that outsourced sales team and not have to have those full-time employees that you automatically may associate with having those salespeople in your staff. So Nick, tell us more about Sales Performance Team and what you provide, because I know that you provide a number of services. So tell us more about that and how we might benefit from it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity. And once again, the membership business is such a phenomenal business. I think the message that you're bringing and the education you're doing for this business is so key. So thank you for all that you're doing for that, because it's just such a great business when it's done right. And what you teach people just makes them do it right from the beginning. So that's great. Sales Performance Team, like as I said, really kind of came when I saw all the work we did with folks at what was then GKIC, and it's kind of had a couple different names, but really filling the top of the funnel, which in lead generation, which is great. There's nobody better at, they teach it and do well. There's a lot of great partners and people out there teaching how to get leads into the system. But a lot of times people didn't move the people through the pipeline, and they didn't move the pipeline because they didn't have a proven and repeatable system and process for selling, right? And so Nick would do it one way, Scott would do it another, and Jamie would do it a third way on the sales team. And they get all different results. And so then the business owner would get upset because he's like, well, I'm wasting all this money on leads, and I got one guy closing at 30%, one person closing at 10, the other one's closing at 60. Well, okay, let's figure out what the 60% closed person is doing, and let's really process map it out. We did this in boot camps where we would say, where are the constraints in the sales of your organization, right? And if selling membership, where are the constraints? So where's the sales stalling? Let's figure out a way to remove the constraints, all right, theory of constraints. We would teach people how to put that into the sales process and really get that into place. And so that's what this is. This is the genesis of the boot camps we would do, and really taking a systematic approach to the sales process. And it could be done where you bring us in and we coach and consult with you, and we create the playbook for you, and we say, here it is, and implement it. Or we could stay on and implement it for you. Or we could do like we talked about, where we can outsource the entire sales process to us and rerun the team for them. Or we can do it a hybrid, right? So we're doing a little bit of everything. Once we kind of get through the can people get back together, we'll go back to running boot camps, because I think there's magic that happens in the room. Some certain types of boot camps can be done virtually, but certain ones have to be with 2 or 3 or 4 people in the room together. So we'll get back to that. But right now we're focusing on helping people get a proven, repeatable sales process into place so that they have it. It is constantly there, and they have the methodology to train people so that everybody's following a best-in-class, best-in-show sales process.
Awesome. Nick, you've been very generous with your time with us, and you've given us a lot of gold here when it comes to selling and what we should look for in a salesperson, and then also just outsourcing to you and getting coaching, consulting on building that repeatable process. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, easiest way, pick up the phone if that's your mode of communication. 847-720-4264, 847-720-4264, or shoot me an email, nick@salesperformanceteam.com, salesperformanceteam.com. You could go on there and you could book 15 minutes, 30 minutes to learn more about what we do, or hit me up on LinkedIn and Facebook, all the social media. I'm on all of that, and so I'm pretty easy to find. You could find your way to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just say, if you want to reach out to me, I'll be glad to connect you with Nick as well, and connect you via email there. So, but go check out salesperformanceteam.com. Look at all their services that they provide, and reach out to Nick and get him involved in building your membership. Nick, again, I want to thank you for taking your time and being with us today. And any parting thoughts that you would like to share?
Keep doing what you're doing, Scott. And the guys and gals that are listening, thank you for being membership organizations. My wife runs a membership organization. I love the model that you do. There is something about a group of people that they come together as members, and 1 + 1 + 1 = 16. It doesn't equal 3. So keep doing the great work that you're doing, Scott, in this space. It is phenomenal to see the case studies that you talk about in your postings and your emails of the work that you do, and folks that are creating memberships, either they're established membership organizations or they're thinking about building them. Keep doing it. It's phenomenal work that you do, and I'm very, very, very happy just to part some wisdom on you and be part of it.
Thank you very much, Nick. Again, go check out Nick Loise. Look him up on LinkedIn or Facebook or salesperformanceteam.com. Reach out to him. Let's get your sales team and build it so that we can ultimately multiply your membership so that we can serve more people. I always say, Nick, that when we help people get more members, we help them serve more people. And that's exactly what you're doing. That's what we want to continue to do, to build membership businesses. So again, if you found today's podcast helpful, be sure to like or subscribe or share it with those that you know. We always appreciate that. And look out for next week's edition of the More Members Now podcast. We'll talk to you then.